Man, has he been on it. The 38 Studios investigation. It's Tim White in studio with me tonight. Billy Wabbit, I got a little bit of that thing going on tonight. What can you do? It's live television, sort of. Nice to have you in. Thank you for joining my State of Mind. I am Dan York, and yeah, Tim is in, and I saw a tweet today. I don't know who sent it to him. I think it was Bill Fisher, the PR guy, who said something like, if it's 38 Studios, it's Tim White this week. And another joked on the radio. John Laughlin was filling in for me yesterday on the radio and said something like, boy, that Attorney General, Tim White's doing a great job. So we have to laugh about this story or we'll just cry all day. We'll have Tim on coming up in a little bit. Let me get to the rundown. And you know, when I wrote this, I write these, you know. Take the ball and bat or bat and ball and go home. Is it bat and ball or ball and bat? But you'll get the theme here when we talk about Washington. And now we're going to spread the cost around when it comes to the Sakonnet River Bridge. Not exactly what we were looking for on the Dan York Show, but maybe some progress. And now we're down from 7 to 3%. Yeah, that's a ticket. How about 3%? We could, you know, we could turn the economy around with a 3% sales tax, as opposed to taking it all out. And this is like, what? Are you serious? Now the Senate is deciding that they're going to make a move on the education department now? And speaking of education, Garth, you're expelled. You or I had a little bit of a problem, or the Narragansett community had a little bit of a problem this past weekend with a Cinco de Mayo themed party, I guess, that turned into what some say is a riot. Let's go to the breakdown of the rundown. Take the ball and bat, the bat and ball, and go home, whatever. Here's the national headline. You see that we've got a real uptick now in Benghazi coverage, and it all came from these emails that were unearthed by you know, the State Department to the talking heads about Benghazi in general and pushing the video that was the big excuse for the violence in Benghazi that cost the lives of 4 of our America's finest. Here's a little reminder from Fox News.
It was one of the worst attacks in American diplomatic history. 4 Americans killed, including Ambassador Chris Stevens. And now House Speaker John Boehner is setting up a select committee to find out what the White House knew and when they knew it.
This is all about getting to the truth. There's not going to be a sideshow. There's not going to be a circus. This is a serious investigation.
Multiple sources tell Fox News there are a number of Republicans lobbying to get on the committee, most blaming the White House for a lack of transparency following the attacks.
What I find funny about this, funny interesting, not funny haha, is that while there are Republicans clamoring to get on this committee, there are Democrats who say they'll never show up for it. You know, the Watergate hearings had a 4-3 party imbalance, and Republicans are quick to point that out. Nancy Pelosi says, you know, no one's going to show up. Nobody's going to show up unless this is an even Steven, you know, 4-4, 6-6. I think that's the number they're using now, 6-6. Republicans are in power in Congress. Look, I don't know whether it's an asset or a liability to the Democrats not to show up for these hearings. If they boycott these hearings, I'm trying to figure out if that legitimizes the query or delegitimizes the query. Seems to me it probably delegitimizes the query. It makes the Democrats look like they protest just a bit too much. Stay tuned. Next item. Yeah. Look, I've been championing the cause of the Sakonnet River Bridge tolls to be eliminated for a long time now. Here's the headline: a vote against the Sakonnet tolls, so you get the actual authority, the Turnpike and Bridge Authority, that says, you know what, we're going to hold off on this another month because this is now the second due date, I think, for a legitimate toll. Like, there's a 10-cent toll going on right now, that caretaker toll, or whatever the heck they call it, the placeholder toll. Yeah, that's it. Anyway. The authority says, well, look, the legislature's banging around competitive issues between the House and the Senate to rid the tolls. So that's kind of what they're doing. We've got a little piece from Eyewitness News on this.
It should not be a toll bridge. It's a commuter bridge. It's that simple. We have a lot of part-time workers in Portsmouth and Tiverton that have to travel over the bridge. What are they getting, $8, $9 an hour if they're getting that much?
Stephen Wallach is serving as acting chairman following David Darlington's resignation last week. He didn't want to speak on camera, but he told Eyewitness News that the reason for the delay is to give legislative leaders time to vote on pending legislation. On Tuesday, the state Senate Finance Committee unanimously approved a bill to block tolls on the Sakonnet River Bridge and establish a statewide transportation infrastructure fund to pay for projects.
Yeah, here's the good news. The good news is that we have momentum against that toll. Here's the bad news. They're going to spread this all around. More taxes and more fees to us to pay for the maintenance on that bridge and more. And I keep coming back to this theme. Honestly, with an $8.5 billion budget, we got to be able to find money within that to take care of infrastructure. I mean, we're not New York. We can do this within our budgets. But it doesn't seem like there's the political will to do that. So more taxes, more fees for everybody. I guess that's a consolation prize because Aquidneck Island cannot deal with the economic hardship of having that be any kind of demonstrative toll, no doubt. Incredible. You know, the other thing is, it's government dysfunction at its worst. There are millions of dollars of new equipment on that bridge getting ready for the toll as we speak. That'll be what? Sold in a yard sale? We'll follow it. We'll continue to follow it. What a crazy mess. Next, what do we have here? Hey, first we wanted to go 0%. Right now, how about 3%? Boy, oh boy. The folks at the Center for Freedom and Prosperity and other no tax, low tax, cut the tax groups are doing their best. Here's the headline on this, I believe. Yeah, the tax cut is the only game changer, the advocates say. Yeah, they're plugging away. I got to give them credit for plugging away and plugging away and plugging away and plugging away. Guys like Stenhouse have been on this program time and time again. He'll be on again soon, I'm sure, to talk about how this works. Oh, not as good as a 0% sales tax, but not so bad. Even lowering the sales tax from 7 to 3% will get us somewhere in the neighborhood of a $600 million vacuum in the budget. In other words, that's the hit. And he says it all comes back. It all comes back in economics. We'll see. I don't see any appetite for this at all whatsoever in this legislature. That's just trying to get its footing under House Speaker Nick Mattiello. But you cannot blame them for trying. And true to form, we need a game-changing idea to shake this place up. So keep digging. What do we have here? This is just insane. When I saw this today, I thought the world is standing on its head. The headline here is the Senate panel votes to postpone the kneecap requirement. This has been ongoing the entire school year. These seniors have been fretting over the idea that they've got to get what's the word, Jess? They got to do better on the test. Partial proficiency. I knew I'd get it. No one prompted me. Rox didn't say it in my headset. Did you, Rox? No. I got it. I'm going to celebrate that all day long. Forget Tim White. I'm going to spend the rest of the show celebrating that Anyway, there's poor Deb Gist, the ed commissioner. She's not poor. She does well. But this is her baby, the State Board of Education baby. They've been defending it. And now in the 11th hour, as we're ready to graduate some of these kids, yes or no, we're going to postpone it to 2017? Since when does the Senate Education Committee decide these kinds of things on this kind of timetable? Anyway, and lastly, speaking of education, party on, Garth. Well, guess what, Garth? You're expelled. Yeah, big party, Cinco de Mayo, down in Narragansett across from Scarborough, resulted in, I don't know, do we have a headline or something? Yeah, we do. It wasn't a party, it was a riot. Bottles getting thrown, kids are just out of control, inebriated. Not good. The people in Narragansett are tortured by this, and so too is the vice president for affairs, like kid affairs at URI.
We are looking at individuals being expelled from the university. Not all, but given some seriousness to some of those offensive, how in the world can you possibly justify throwing a glass bottle into a crowd of anyone? It's absolutely intolerable and inexcusable, and something that I can't even begin to understand.
Yeah, well, a lot of us can't. We've seen, it's not like we weren't born yesterday, but listen, this is the one thing they're going to have to do down there is on these big, potential party days, they're going to have to, someone's going to have to pay for more law enforcement presence in the neighborhoods before things get out of hand. Vice President Dugan was telling me, what the battle is now? It's social media. There'll be nothing going on at noon. Party. How they just kind of talk to each other. all of a sudden you got 800 kids hammered in an hour. In Egypt, they change governments. At URI, they get hammered. Tim White next. Real good work. You got to stay tuned. Yeah, somebody tweeted out today, if it's 38 Studios, it's Tim White. And of course, John Laughlin on the radio said something very funny yesterday when he's filling in for me. He said, yeah, that Attorney General, Tim White's doing a heck of a job. Here's the WPRI headlines. By the way, that son of a gun, Richard Leach, the Director of Administration, is in my line of questioning for Tim's Target 12 investigative work tonight. My friend, good job. It's nice when you can advance a story that has gotten everybody so fatigued. At least, it's been 38 Studios malaise. My radio phone lines have died on it. It's not that there's no interest, it's that people don't know what to say anymore. At least you've been able to advance the story with a pretty good coup. So
yeah, and you
job.
never know before you get into it if it's going to resonate with people at all, or if they are, as you used the word, so fatigued. And there's been so much geography over the past 2 years on this alone that there's actually a lot of work just to make sure some stuff hasn't been reported. I mean, you have to go back through the archives and go, wait a minute. Did we report it? You follow what I'm saying?
Did we report? Did a competitor report?
Did the Journal report on it? Has this been out there?
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm glad that it did resonate.
All right, so the Target 12 pieces are on the website at WPRI.com. Make sure that if you haven't seen them, see them all. I'm not gonna talk about Tim's work while Tim is in here, but these 3 and 4 minute journalistic pieces are very important for you to look at because there's a lot of information packed into them. You know, you were able to find that this gentleman, Michael Corso, who is an instrumental player in the 38 Studios saga, had some actually on paper contractual financial deals that he made. We'll talk about why that's important, but let's go back to the facts of what you first broke.
Sure.
You have a $300,000 story that happened first, but then somebody must have dropped more dimes, seems to me.
Yeah, so we got our hands on more of these contracts that you referenced. And not only was there this $300,000 consulting agreement that raised a lot of questions as to why he didn't register as a lobbyist, he had signed on under his own name as someone that would try and go out and get other financing for the company, and his fee for that was $485 an hour. Then, of course, we all know that he had a company called Preservation Credit Program or a corporation, and that would be trying to go out and get tax credits.
We should probably, before we dig into more of this, is explain who this guy is. This guy is a lawyer in town, friendly with the Speaker then of the House, Gordon Fox.
Held fundraisers for him.
Held fundraisers. Actually, as I recall, some of my work and what I've read is a landlord to the Speaker's now husband in his business at one time. So there was an intimacy about their personal and perhaps business relationship that existed. He was also, a catalyst to the conversation about Curt Schilling actually having a project here. We haven't figured out exactly, though, where it all began and ended, right? In terms of getting. Well, what do you think? What was his role in marketing this project here?
There's little question he was probably one of the most significant reasons 38 Studios ended up in Rhode Island. I don't think that's what his relationship with Gordon Fox is the very reason that Gordon Fox had a meeting in March of 2010 with Curt Schilling, with Keith Stokes, at Mike Corso's office.
Keith Stokes is the head of the Economic Development Corporation, which is now defunct. It's been changed to the Commerce
Corporation.
Commerce Corporation.
Yeah. And Keith Stokes is gone in the wake of all this, and he's a defendant in the state's law.
So this guy's pivotal and a player. And so what you've been able to do is, with your document drop and this work that you've done journalistically, is validate his transactional role in this entire saga.
He was set up to be paid very handsomely by the company he helped to get to Rhode Island that was ultimately funded with taxpayer dollars.
Bingo.
Right.
Now, you first broke the story with the $300,000 document, and then last night you're like, and this, and this, and this. Did they come after you broke the story, or was it all a package that you were spreading out for 2 days?
There has been a handful of documents that I've had, and sometimes it's helpful guidance from the inside, and I think that's what happened here. And when I say documents, I don't mean a few. I mean a few thousand documents that we've had. and that we had to curry through. And in there were these contracts with Michael Corso. So when we did the lobby story, which is the $300,000 contract that you're referencing, that's when the dam broke on, hey, also look for this, 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 and this.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So this guy had it come in 4 ways at least. A consultant agreement.
Under 3 different companies.
Okay. And the initial story that was kind of shocking this week was the idea that you pursued the Secretary of State to say, hey, by the way, you following this whole idea that 38 Studios had what it, for all intents and purposes, is described as a lobbyist, although the word wasn't used in the contract. Duh. You kind of pinned the Secretary of State back a little bit, forcing him, after a day's consideration, to say,
Right.
thank you, Tim, for doing my work for me. I'm now going to call the state police and get together with them, right?
Yeah, so 24 hours after that interview, he said, I've had a change of heart. We are launching an investigation into possible lobbying violations by 38 Studios, be it Michael Corso, be it a board member, be it Kurt Schilling, whoever. Clearly, policy was influenced legislatively and from the executive branch. We know that. We also know no one ever registered as a lobbyist. Okay, yeah, let's launch an investigation.
All right, so that's kind of like the background. When we come back, we'll do our analysis as to what it meant, what it means now, and what it could mean down the line. There will be a day when we don't have 38 Studios in the news. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Tim White from, he was just telling you.
Channel 12, that's where I work.
No, a very funny story. Someone thought you were Ted Nesi the other day, right?
Yeah, I was in a restaurant. Someone said, hey, you're from Channel 12. Yes, Ted Nesi,
This
right?
is why we should have no chats during the break, because, last minute. Anyway, very serious conversation we're having about 38 Studios. The investigation, the Target 12 investigation, you really need to get on the website at WPRI.com and take a look at it. We're going to pick up where we left off.
Sure.
Michael Corso, this linchpin, human linchpin in the 38 Studios deal, has this extraordinary set of deals when it comes to 38 Studios.
Right.
His lobby contract, in our words, is one thing at 300 Gs, but this construction deal was extraordinary, yes?
Yeah, he had a third company set up called Orb Development under his name, addressed to the same place in, Chestnut Street in Providence. And the way it was worded, he would get 10% of any of the billables for the construction of the redevelopment of the Providence headquarters for 38 Studios with a minimum of $500,000.
Yeah,
so that's the basement.
Listen, these numbers, people say, wow, that's unbelievable. Cumulatively, $300,000 for a lobby contract, a basement of $500,000 for another deal, $485 an hour as a lawyer, and then a tax credit opportunity down the line in relationship here. That's money, in my guesstimate, is spreadable dough. In other words, I don't think he was hoarding all that cash. That's my theory. Now, you don't do well with theory. You want just the facts.
Right,
man.
yeah.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, all of it's worth digging into, and one story begets another, and we'll see where it takes you.
I think the authorities want to take a look at the volume of the monetary considerations here, because it's big enough to spread around.
What authorities? I mean, all we know right now is, beside the lobby investigation that was sparked, is the state police have something burning. Feds are done. They're not looking into it anymore. So the only authority left in that vein would be the Rhode Island State Police.
Check your own tape of your own good work with the U.S. Attorney Peter Nerona. Unless, I remember unless something new, and we're done. I mean, he was emphatic about being done.
Sure, there's always an unless, isn't there?
Right.
But I can tell you, because I think people are going to naturally wonder, the Fox investigation, as of earlier this week, still has nothing to do with 38 Studios. Totally separate.
Not
and that's
now.
from my sources.
Not now.
Right.
Not now. Who knows? But you know what? People roll on all sorts of things. I mean, look at the way former investigations have just turned over and over and over. Anyway, where do we go from here? The House Oversight Committee is actually having a testimony today on whether or not we ought to pay the bonds. That aside, that's something interesting.
Yeah, but all of these stories, be it mine and what's in the journal and things like that, they're coming at a time when they're debating this, right?
Right. So,
and yes, there is an actuarial report that's being worked out, and we'll see how what numbers come out of that, and that's the numbers that Nick Manning.
But that's the report that the administration is paying for, while it already has a predisposition on the radio today. We have a short piece here from Governor Chafee. Do we have that real quick, Rox? Can we pop that in? Here's what he said.
But I believe in the long-term interest of our state, and I firmly believe this. We just have to pay the bills that we owe.
But he's still paying $75,000 for this report that's going to come
Yeah,
in
but
a
the
couple
General
of days.
Assembly has to make that happen. He's been saying that from the beginning. That's nothing different.
No doubt, but he's still on an administrative basis paying for a validation of that, and you'd think he'd keep his powder dry. Look, you know what? If they don't fund it in the budget, the lawsuit he's running has no merit because there's no penalty.
Okay.
But his chief of administration, Richard Leach, was key in your report. Turned out that this guy Corso went shopping for tax credits with Richard Leach, and Leach tells you that he didn't tell his boss?
Yeah, and to be clear, that was a phone conversation Ted Nesi had with Richard Leach. He's my colleague, and I've been working with him on this story. And, you know, I don't think the significance of that should be lost. It's something we hadn't heard before, that Mike Corso and Curt Schilling met with Richard Leach and David Sullivan, he's the head of the Division of Taxation, to talk about options for tax credits. And this is well before it all hit the fan.
Right.
So I think
Which means the governor should not have been surprised by the financial duress that this company was under.
the governor, the man, maybe should have been surprised because Richard Leach told Ted that he did not inform the governor of that meeting, but the governor's administration, the Chafee administration, I think that is a perfect question. Now, we haven't asked the governor about that yet. We haven't had that opportunity to, and we will at some point. But you're absolutely right.
All right. You know what? There's no end to this conversation. You got anything else this week?
We always have something cooking.
Going to take a break? Wait for the weekend?
I'd like that.
All right. Listen, great work, man.
Thank
Just
you.
watch the Target 12 TV. Ted, come back and see me.
I'm out. I'm never coming back on the show again.
Your state of mind next. This is how you get in touch with the program. Leave me a voicemail, call us, write to us, tweet at us. Here's a Facebook post I found interesting on this terrible circus story from the weekend. Reacting to the conversation that some people took their little ones to the circus. Taking a 2-year-old to the circus is like taking them to Disney. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Not. Hey, listen, we're happy that those girls are going to make it. Some of them are going to work again. A couple may not walk again, but with a little work and God's help, maybe they will. All right. We will see you tomorrow. And I'll see you on the radio at noon on WPRO, and tomorrow at 7:30 on MyRide TV. Good night.